We start with a rip-off of a classic Kubrick film, and instead of a giant black monolith appearing in front of some stuntmen in monkey suits, we now get a giant fuck-off supermodel appearing before some stuntmen in kiddie suits. Who's some shit? As the narrator explains how the creation of Barbie taught little girls around the world that they can be anything they want to be. Like stunning and brave social media influencers making 10 grand a post, or even blue-collared labourers who can show that they can get stuck in with the lads by cleaning out sewers and stuff. Though, let's face it, it's usually the former. And so the ignorantly naive Barbies, what live in some sort of Barbie realm, totally think they've solved real-world inequality overnight via the raw unparalleled power of feminism. Anyway, after a cringy pop cringe intro outlining her morning routine in which everything is plastically perfect, we meet main protagonist Stereotypical Barbie, aka the super hot Margot Robbie Barbie. And we soon see how she lives in a stunning and brave matriarchy where multicoloured multicultural women run the country, fly planes and even work on construction sites and stuff. Whereas the poor and technically homeless Kens are all cucked worse than current day Will Smith, or current day online streamer Destiny, and seem to spend every waking minute saying hello to each other for some reason. And after stopping to make fun of Michael Cera as some random bloke called Alan, we meet main beach surfer Ken, aka Ryan Gosken, who's vying with arrogant Asian Ken for the attention of Margot Robbie's blonde bimbo Barbie, and hilariously knocks himself out on some 2D waves after trying to impress the broad. And he feels like a total plum, given he can't surf for shit, nor do his one job at just being ever present at the local beach. And not a joke. Standing around at the local beach looking hunky is like his one purpose in life whilst living under the matriarchy what love objectifying all the Kens for shits and giggles. Anyway, so stereotypical blonde bimbo Barbie invites him over to her all-night girls party to cheer him back up by getting his boogie on. But arrogant Asian Shang-Chi Ken totally humiliates him again, and this time by showing off with a pretty cool backflip. But before he can cry about it, main Barbie totally kills the mood by morbidly talking about death and stuff. But after the other Barbies soon bring her back to her plastic senses, they just carry on dancing the night away. Huzzah! The next morning, she sets about her normal perfect routine. But bizarrely, she soon wakes up with stinky morning breath, burns all her breakfast, and has even developed flat feet. And after she shows off her condition to her contemporary Barbies, including chocolate afro Barbie and overweight fat ass Barbie, they find her affliction so shocking and gross that it even makes the transgender Barbie puke. And after telling her mates about all the other things going wrong today, they just reckon she's malfunctioning. So they promptly send her off to visit weird try-hard Barbie, who totally lives in exile, given she used to be perfect until a real-world child played with her too hard. Which I guess kind of explains the likes of once wholesome and wholly presentable Britney Spears and Miley Cyrus. Though fuck knows what happened to Ellen Page. Anyway, this mental bird, what loves doing random splits for some reason, reckons that the veil between worlds are totally waning, given Barbie seems to be having thoughts of death and is now developing cellulite and shit. Because apparently, whoever's playing with her IRL must be super sad and lonely, and so she needs to go over there and tell him to cheer the frig up already. Because she's totally killing your mojo, bro, and also affecting the whole mood of Barbieland to boot. But stereotypical blonde bimbo Barbie is totally confused, given she thinks all the girls in the real world should be happy now that they have that feminism thing and can be totally anything they want to be and stuff. But unfunny postmodern weirdo Barbie says stop waffling on about gender equality and get your flabby butt over there already. So after Surfer Bro Ken stows away, having packed himself tight inside a little pink rear, still it? They travel through various absurd cartoon lands till they land in the real world. And immediately upon arrival in Venice Beach, super hot supermodel Margot Robbie Barbie soon feels super self-conscious for the first time in her life. And after being stunned to find men working manual labour in this world and then telling them all about how her and her mate are both technically eunuchs given they have no genitals, she instantly gets a taste of misogyny when some rando horn dog comes up and slaps her tight little tushy, which immediately results in her smacking his hooter and landing herself and Kenny Boy in jail.
Nice.
A little later, and Barbie tries to figure out how to find the sad little girl who totally owns her, whilst Cowboy Ken heads off on a solo adventure, and soon finds that the local menfolk totally respect him just for being a bloke.
No way!
Yes, way. Because of a shocking twist where he could totally never see coming. Turns out this world is a patriarchy and totally run by men and she. Meanwhile, Barbie senses a bunch of sad memories of her ethnically diverse owner kid, and soon develops the ability to do that crying thing what human women love to do. Especially toward the end of the month. And this experience totally opens her heart and makes her super sensitive to the world around her, which results in her feeling the wind and appreciating nature, and also laughing at two bald black blokes sitting on a bench.
Damn!
After realising that her owner is at the local school, she reunites with a newly awakened Ken and soon heads off to find her. Whilst over at Mattel, aka the Barbie Maker headquarters, a worker called Aaron Dinkins is informed that a pair of their plastic dolls have somehow gotten loose and are now cosplaying as phony fakey humans because reasons. So naturally, Aaron Dinkins runs upstairs to tell top brass, but first stops to talk to a doodling receptionist called Gloria, who's busy drawing new designs such as Irrepressible Thoughts of Death Barbie and also Full Body Cellulite Barbie. Anyway, he then heads into the CEO's office to tell Will Ferrell that he's looking fucking well old these days. Their plastic dolls are somehow coming to life and rollerblading about along the beachfront while smacking up local misogynists. Gloria then overhears all this utterly mental shit and also how the CEO wants them captured and sent back home pronto. Meanwhile, Barbie takes Ken to school, and after he goes off to read some more about patriarchy and how men are generally just better at everything than girls, including being actual girls and winning all their sports and stuff nowadays, Barbie dismisses the warnings of the local trans kid and totally goes over to talk to a mean girl called Sasha, who coincidentally turns out to be her owner. And this grimdark teenage emo moody kid says she don't give a stuff about no stinking Barbie girl what lives in a Barbie world. Cause she ain't played with them pussy old toys since she was 5, and she's a big girl now anyway. And after her friends egg her on to totally drop some truth bombs in the form of hurty words, she proceeds to give her a preachy lecture about how classic traditional Barbie is now everything that's wrong with modern culture. Because over-sexualised capitalism, unrealistic physical ideals and glorification of rampant consumerism that has and is systematically destroying girls' innate sense of worth over generations just ain't fucking on, son. And after getting called a fascist for some reason by a teenage bully with an attitude problem, she runs off in tears, whilst Ken explores more about male power and soon gets radicalised into wanting to make patriarchy great again. Or some shit. Later, an emotionally crushed and demoralised Barbie soon gets picked up by Mattel agents, while savage Sasha gets collected from class by none other than that Gloria bird, who just can't believe the plastic toy her daughter used to play with was literally just 10 feet in front of her IRL. And after Will Ferrell and his board of blokes literally tries to put women back in their box, she gets the heck out of Dodge and promptly escapes with Gloria and her bully kid, what loves calling everyone she don't like a literal fascist. Said Gloria lady then reveals how she recently started playing with her kids' Barbies again, given she got sad and lonely now her daughter's become a moody teen and barely talks to her anymore. And her doodlings naturally got progressively sadder and lonelier too. And that's why super hot Margot Robbie Barbie's been a bit miserable lately, and getting proper morbid between super cheerful and highly choreographed dance numbers and stuff. Anyway, after taking the girls back to Barbie Land because reasons, she just can't believe that the world has now become a pretty cool place where men have fun 24/7, and where women dress in sexy costumes whilst making their partners happy by serving the blokes some ice cold brewskis all day. And before you can say, how the fuck do I get a ticket to this place? Barbie arrives back at her dream house, and soon finds that Ryan Gosken, aka now Fojo Mojo Ken in a faux fur coat, has totally transformed it into Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa House. And soon finds that all the local Barbies have been convinced to return to traditional gender roles once the Kens non-violently took over after logically explaining patriarchy to them. And rather hilariously, and probably not at all what the director intended to illustrate with this scene, all the Barbies seem much happier embracing natural femininity where they don't have to pretend to enjoy working construction or having responsibilities of flying planes all day with insane hours. and can now just relax and be agreeable, submissive girlfriends again. Now Ken's launched a full-on insurrection and changed the constitution to becoming a patriarchal Ken land of Kens and a land of Kens. Or some shit. And after channeling his inner red-pilled Andrew Tate macho top G energy, he turfs main Barbie out of her own house and dumps all her clobber on the floor like yesterday's turd. As the Margot Robbie Barbie has a full-on existential crisis. Now she realises she fucked up her life by going to the real world and letting her zombie-cut brainwashed boyfriend emancipate himself by reading books and getting educated and stuff.
No!
So Weirdo ex-SNL Barbie takes her back to her weirdo palace, whilst Gloria and Sasha head on home, but hilariously get into a small crash when they find that creepy Alan bloke stowing away and trying to finally get out of Barbie land once and for all. Because he don't really fit in there, given he's the only one of his kind and also a ginger. But the girls soon realise that they can't really leave their new friend laid face down in the grass and more depressed than the middle-aged kidless cat lady who's realised too late that feminism was a giant lie all along. So, after having a pleasant moment of bonding and mother-daughter making up time, they head on back to smack a Ken up. And poor Alan just bemoans about never getting out of this plastic shithole that doesn't even have real food or drink or even a small butter knife to totally top himself with. After reuniting with never tardy Margot Barbie, Gloria gives her a cringy feminist girl boss speech about society's conflicting expectations of women, which totally makes her feel better, and also seems to interrupt the indoctrination of all the other Barbies around her by quote,
"Giving voice to the cognitive dissonance required to be a woman under the patriarchy, you robbed it of its power." Yes.
So they come up with a plan to distract the Kens by pretending to be totally tarded and sucking up to the male ego, so they can kidnap the brainwashed girls behind their backs and totally break their conditioning. Which they totally do, and having finally deprogrammed all the Barbies, they now have to come up with a second plan, given there's a super important vote on enshrining male superiority into Barbie Land's constitution happening tomorrow, and so they need to get there first, doesn't she? So naturally, the girls rather cruelly prey on the Kens' petty jealousies in order to manipulate the men's fragile egos and thereby trick them into doing a rival dance-off for some reason. Which also includes singing a cringy ballad of their own. And all just to totally distract them from being able to attend the vote.
Shame.
And soon enough, the Barbie girls, what would generally prefer to live in a Barbie world it seems, promptly vote to turn Kenland back into Barbie Land. And before he can say, "That was straight up voter suppression, yo, and don't you people care about democracy?" he runs off in floods of tears now feminism's returned and instantly made everyone insufferably fake and fucking miserable again. Until the super hot Margot Barb totally comforts him and apologises for taking him for granted and also for getting him jailed that one time. And soon tells him to pull himself together and be his own man already. Or at least figure out who he is without her and stuff. And after finally figuring out that he's indeed Ken and Ken is him, Mattel boss Will Ferrell randomly appears and says he's going to do better in future and totally make Barbie Land great again. AKA totally restore it to exactly how it was before. But the stunning and brave black female president Barbie says that not everything should really return to the status quo, because they've learned lots of lessons about equality and shit. And to effectively illustrate this, she proceeds to immediately reject one of the Ken's appeals to have a male representative spot on the SCOTUS, and thereby essentially relegating the Kens to becoming second-class citizens again, before welcoming back the exiled weirdo lesbian haircut Barbie back into Barbie Land, whilst instantly giving this unqualified nutcase with zero experience a high-level job in her cabinet. Gah! Lucky this is all fiction and the current day Biden administration ain't just handing out highly skilled positions to incompetent and mentally ill degenerates.
What the fuck, y'all? God damn! God damn!
And Gloria soon makes her mark with her boss by suggesting they just make an ordinary box standard Barbie. Like a sans makeup plain Jane Barbie. Or a nondescript woman you probably wouldn't look twice at in the street type Barbie. And unsure of her ending, nor where she really belongs anymore, some old crusty granny randomly appears in Barbie Land, who turns out to be none other than Barbie's literal girl boss and inventor creator lady.
Awesome!
So she invites her to come with her into some sort of limbo realm, as all her mates and kind of sort of love interests wave her goodbye, as she then sees lots of home videos of little girls somehow, and then chooses to become human also somehow. Because I guess Margot Robbie is totally tired of being an iconic ideal of independent womanhood constantly living in an eternal paradise. So instead chooses to become mortal and totally die, because mortality is apparently what gives life meaning. So I suppose she kind of became morbid Barbie after all. And we end with the narrator explaining how Barbie left behind being totally fantastic in plastic, and instead became a bona fide flesh and blood adult human female with permanently flat feet, as Gloria and the fam drop her off outside a local clinic for her first ever appointment to see the muff doctor. And again, not a joke.
And what are you here for today, Barbara?
I'm here to see my gynecologist.
Okay.
And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was how Barbie world is restored to a glorious feminist utopia at the end. And it's so great that its ultimate liberal champion immediately abandons it, while still clearly cut to Ken, who just wants a little R-E-S-P-C-T, then just casually waves off his eternal love interest, who he'll never see again after realising that Barbie will never love him no matter how hard he tries. Wowzers, what a timelessly romantic and highly satisfying ending. Though I just loved all the progressive messaging in this film, like the flippant attitude shown to the constant microaggressions directed toward poor local neighbour Mitch, aka the plastic pregnant Barbie. What was apparently so strange and disturbing to the customer base that Mattel had to discontinue her entire line. Aww. Why they couldn't have just paired her up with obvious incel Alan, I don't know. Cause this subplot went fucking nowhere, son. Oh, and lastly, what was with all the random homages to Will Ferrell's Elf film back in the day? I mean, it's one thing casting the Ferrell fella as a dopey man-child just like his character Buddy in that flick, but having scenes where they cross into the real world via cartoonish sets is something else entirely. And they even seem to have characters such as Dua Lipa's Mermaid Barbie quoting Mr. Narwhal line for line.
Bye, Barbie. Good luck in reality.
Liberties! But anyway, that's a plot and that's a lot. Considering in that bill thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll with you in the next one.